Hello, everybody who is watching this. I am Taro, and I am a Hearthstone arena player. Many of you may know me from my appearances on the Lightforge. Many of you may know me from basically yelling at Blizzard whenever they don't do anything. Many of you know me from my arena analysis written reviews that I do for every Hearthstone expansion. And I decided that because there are so many esteemed arena players that have decided to switch over to Battlegrounds, and there are, as a result, a lot fewer arena videos, arena card reviews, that I would do a video card review for Descent of Dragons. So if you like this, again, give it a like, watch, recommend it to people. Maybe I'll do these more for the future, but I have a lot of extra time today. I have a lot of spare time, so I figured I'd do one for Descent of Dragons. So Descent of Dragons, it is the newest Hearthstone expansion as of December 2019, and Descent of Dragons, as you can tell by its name, is based around, well, dragons. So most of the set has a lot of really, really, really powerful dragon cards. So hold on, let me shrink myself down here, and let me go over here to the Warlock. So an example of a kind of dragon card that you are going to see is this. Crazed Netherwing, 5 mana 5/5. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all other characters. Yeah, obviously this thing's insane, right? So the question is, how insane? If we were to say like a 5 mana 5/5, deal 3 damage to all characters, ignore the holding a dragon part, what would that be? Oh, for the record, my scores, I'm using Hearth Arena as the base for comparison. So if I say it's going to be like a 150 or anything along those lines, that's compared to Hearth Arena. So when I say a 150, like you have to remember, Abyssal Enforcer was a 7 mana 6/6 with a Hellfire attached to it, and that was like 120 to 130, give or take. So Crazed Netherwing, a 5 mana 5/5 with the same effect, would be probably the most busted card ever printed in the history of Hearthstone. So how could this be balanced? And the way it's balanced, especially in Arena, is that there aren't that many dragons. Like, in spite of all the sets rotating in spite, I think I'm a little bit too small here, let me fix that a bit. In spite of, okay, there, I'm a bit bigger now. In spite of Descent of Dragons having so many powerful dragons, in spite of all the sets they're rotating in, which, if you don't know, Rastakhan's Rumble, Knights of the Frozen Throne, the Grand Tournament, Blackrock Mountain, and One Night in Karazhan. All sets that have a dragon theme in them. We're getting as many dragons as we're ever going to get in the arena, as much dragon synergy as we're ever going to get in the arena. And dragons make up a grand total, not counting legendaries, of about 5 to 6% of the total cards. Yeah, that is not a lot. Remember that in each draft, you're going to be offered about 90 cards, give or take. Well, 90 cards. I say give or take because of legendaries, and that screws things up. But for those 90 cards, let's assume no legendaries. 5% is 4.5. So on average, you're going to be offered 4.5 dragons per deck. And I'll say this. I've spent a lot of time in Arena playing dragon decks. I'm trying to remember. The Saviors of Uldum set. I spent a lot of time. My primary deck that I went to was Priest, and in particular Dragon Priest with just Duskbreaker plus the few dragons that were in the set. And in my experience, you need, and remember, this is Priest. So Priest, which is a massive control class, which had about as many board clears as it could possibly have, which had probably about as favorable a meta for playing control as it could possibly get. Like, I found I needed at least 3 dragons to justify having a Duskbreaker. And if I got 4 or 5, that's good. If I got 3, then that was situational. And I wasn't winning games because of dragons. I was winning games because of my other cards that let me get to play my dragons. So I bring this up because, as I mentioned, there's going to be about 4.5 to 5 cards per deck that are going to be dragons. So the thing is, you're not going to pick all of them. Like, if you go through, let me see, does this take me to HS Replay? Okay, so here you can see various things here on my, so if we go to HS, let's see here, HS Replay, go to cards, I'm going to pull up the sets. I'm just going to pull up the dragons here. The thing is, there's not, like, dragons are very, very good, but they aren't all OP. Let me get the sets here. Basic, classic. Descent of Dragons. Let me see here. Oh, let me turn on Sparse Data. Okay, let me see here. What have we got? We got Ranked Wild. There's no dragon. There has to be dragon. All right, let me turn off the dragon check. That's why I put on demon, not dragon. That's where I made a mistake. Okay, so classic, Descent of Dragons, Rastakan's Rumble, Knights of Throws and Throne, One Night in Karazhan, Grand Tournament, Blackrock Mountain. So these are our dragons here. So as you can see, 53 dragons, which a lot of dragons, right? But then you go through. Okay, and let's filter out legendaries. So you see 32 dragons. And let's go by mana cost. So, like, and here, let's do neutrals. Just make it simple. So let's take a look at some of the dragons we got. Fairy Dragon. Average card. Dragonkin Sorcerer. Average to below average card. New Dragon. Hungry Dragon. Average card. Like Twilight Drake. Average card. Twilight Guardian. Average card if you don't have Dragon Synergy. Let me see here. What else do we have? Bone Drake. Above average card that's picked way too much. Bookworm. Bad card if you don't have Dragon Synergy. Volcanic Drake. Average card. Draconid Crusher. Good card that gets overpicked because of its effect. So I'm making a point here that you're not going to want to pick all these dragons. If you see a Fairy Dragon and you see a Bone Mare, which one are you going to pick? If you see a Twilight Drake and you see a True Silver, which one are you going to pick? So even though there's 5 dragons offered, give or take per deck, sometimes you're going to get the mediocre dragons. Sometimes, like, let me get a Priest, you're going to get a Twilight Whelp. Like Fate Weaver's not in. Let me see here. Let me get rid of Priest. Like some of the dragons here. What other dragons do we have in here? Not in Arena, not in Arena, not in Arena. Like Koldara Drake. Koldara Drake, it's a fine card, but it's not really all that spectacular. Dragon Consort, it's a fine card. It's a lot better with some of the dragons in here. It's not all that spectacular. So a lot of these dragon cards are not auto picks, not even close to auto picks. Like even some of the cards rotating in, they're really powerful, but they're not auto picks. So when you take a look at how many dragons you're going to get on average, that goes 4, maybe 3. And the question is, Crazed Netherwing, this is insane. Are you going to get enough dragons to justify its insanity? And for me, I think it's not nearly reliable enough. For one reason, because you're not going to get enough dragons. And the second reason, which is another key thing for the meta, is the bucket system, as far as I know, is gone. So the bucket system, it had a lot of flaws. I did a Lightforge podcast where I pretty much said get rid of the bucket system. And Blizzard, I guess they ended up listening to me about it, and they got rid of it. The bucket system, for one of the things it had going for it was that a dragon card would be put up against appropriate cards. So if you saw something like a Fairy Dragon, it would be put up against similarly powerful 2-mana 3/2s. It would not be put up against other premium cards. So what's the result of this? The result of this is that you're going to be reaching a lot to pick dragons. And that's really going to, and again, that's going to hurt if you want to go for a dragon deck. If you want to go for a dragon deck and you skip the first 10 picks saying, oh, I'm not going to go for a dragon deck, and then you get something like a Crazed Netherwing and you've already skipped 2 dragons for it, well, then you got to make a choice. Okay, do I switch to a dragon deck, or do I just ignore it, Or do I say, okay, this is a 5/5, so if I get it, it's good, and if I don't, it's bad? So with the bucket system, you could probably reliably build a dragon deck. And without the bucket system, you can't reliably build dragon decks. So on one hand, I think that Descent of Dragons, the dragon part, is not going to be nearly... It's going to be impactful, certainly. You're going to lose games to Crazy Netherwings, certainly. But it's not going to be nearly as impactful as people probably thought it would be at the start. So that's point one I wanted to make on the set. Okay, point two, related to the bucket system, is that certain classes, because of the bucket system, had cards that were not picked nearly as much. I call this the bucket crunch, where you have a card that it's very, very good, but it's almost always against cards that are a lot better than it. So the best example of this would be the mage spell Fireball. 4 mana, deal 6 damage. Like, really good card, right? But when Fireball is always against a Firelance Portal, or a Meteor, or a Flame Strike, then it gets picked a lot less than it should be. Polymorph, same thing, 4 mana. Turn a minion into a 1/1 sheep. Pyroblast, same thing, 10 mana, deal 10 damage to the face. Like, these cards are powerful cards, but they were almost always against even more powerful cards. And because of that, these cards did not show up in Arena for like the last year and a half nearly as much as they should have. So the three traditionally dominant classes in Arena were Rogue, Paladin, Mage. And the reason was their classic set had insane cards. And the reason that in the bucket system that Mage and Paladin took a hit is because we didn't see these cards nearly as much. And to me, I thought that that took away from class identity. That's one of the reasons I wanted the bucket system removed. But without the bucket system, we haven't had the bucket system for about the last 2 months, and we've had Wildfest and we've had Wild Arena. Honestly, neither of which I played because I don't like Wildfest and because I am working on a lot of other things right now, so I didn't have time to play Wild Arena. But in those metas, we did not have the basic and classic cards that are around each set, and we did not really experience them becoming more popular due to the removal of the bucket system. So, with this said, like if you take a look at Mage, cards that come back, I already mentioned. Fireball, Polymorph, Pyroblast. These are cards that you didn't really play around before, and now you're going to have to play around. And Paladin, True Silver was picked a lot, but cards like Blessing of Kings and cards like Consecration, these are cards that were not nearly as picked as they should be. Now, not as they should be, but they were always against cards that were just so much better. So you didn't see them nearly as much as you would expect to see them. In Rogue, a couple cards like Eviscerate, Defies Ringleader, Assassinate. These are all good cards, but when they're always up against much better cards, they barely get picked. So what we're going to see in Arena is that a lot of these basic and classic cards, which due to the bucket system, their effects were diminished, are going to come back. And so Paladin, Mage, and Rogue, all classes that I thought had average to above average average to above average Descent of Dragon cards, are classes I think are going to do really, really well in Arena, just because their basic and classic set is going to raise them up above the other classes. So, point one, dragons. Not nearly as many dragons as you would expect. I don't think dragon decks are going to be... They're going to be a thing, but they're not going to be reliable. It's going to be kind of like when Boomsday and GVG were together. Mech decks were a thing, but they weren't really like you got them every single time. Number two, the removal of the bucket system is going to mean that Paladin, Mage, and Rogue are going to become much better, and classes with poor basic classic sets like Priest and Warrior, they're going to get a lot of bad cards, and they're going to become much worse. So, number three, and this is another thing that's been talked about, is the concept of power creep. So, power creep is generally defined as a card that is strictly better than another card in the game. So, an example of this, a couple examples of this. This one, Big Ol' Whelp. So there used to be a 5-mana 4/4 dragon, Azure Drake, which had Battlecry, draw a card, and had spell damage +1. So the card was 5 mana 4/4, draw a card, because spell damage doesn't matter. That card was so powerful and so ubiquitous that it was removed from Standard. It was put into the Hall of Fame. And now what we have is Big Ol' Whelp, 5 mana 5/5, Battlecry, draw a card. This is a card that clearly power creeps on a card that was so strong, so ubiquitous, you saw it everywhere in every deck, that it got removed from the game. It got removed from Standard. Likewise, Evasive Worm, 6/5. Divine Shield, Rush, cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. So there is a basic classic card, Argent Commander, which is 6 mana, 4/2, Divine Shield, Charge. So Rush is worse than Charge, obviously, but you have a 5/3 Rush with Divine Shield. Cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers, which means now once it's on the board, you have to actually invest resources to kill it off. This is very clearly power creeping on Argent Commander. And like throughout this set, like you'll see a ton of cards that power creep like this. So like these cards I'm kind of fine with, but let me tell you one. This one, it makes me sad. This honestly makes me sad. Gyrocopter, 6 mana 4/5, Rush, Wind Fury. Pay a press F to pay respects for Wind Fury Harpy. In this year, Wind Fury Harpy, it had to put on clothes, and now it's being completely power crept by this mech right here. That's going to be the bane of Arena. Okay, little sarcasm there, as I can't speak. Right. So, in here, Hippogriff. 4 mana, 2/6, Rush, Taunt. Stegodon was a 4 mana 2/6 taunt, so this is like obviously a power crept Stegodon. And there are a lot of cards, especially in class cards, that are just power crept versions of cards we've seen. And for a lot of people, they have complained about this, and they have said, oh, this is going to break the arena. And for me, I don't look at the arena as being broken by cards getting better. I look at the arena being broken as cards being too powerful. So an example here, Amber Watcher. 5 mana, 4/6, Battlecry, restore 8 health. So this is a power crept version of Darkshire Alchemist, which was a solid to okay card in Priest. So this card, obviously, you're paying one stat. And honestly, at 5 mana, a 4/6, you're not paying any stats. And what you're getting is Battlecry, restore 8 health. That sounds insane. But is this better than Bone Mare? Like, would you take this over a Bone Mare? And to me, that's kind of the line in the sand I'm drawing. Like right now, Bone Mare is about the line where I say, if you are better than this card, then you are bad for Arena. And the thing is, like Amber Watcher, really good. I wouldn't say better than Bone Mare. If we go back over to neutral, like here, Big Ol' Whelp, I'd say about Bone Mare level, but probably a little bit less because it doesn't really impact the board, doesn't do anything. Evasive Worm, this is a card where I think power creep is real. I think this is too powerful. I think a 4/3, or I think honestly a 4/3 would be much better, because what's going to happen, and it's the same thing that happened in Standard way back when, turn 5, you play a Big Ol' Whelp, turn 6, your Evasive Worm runs into it and takes it out. And that was the old Standard Argent Commander Azure Drake interaction. And so, like, Evasive Worm is a card where I do think it's way too powerful. But for the most part, there are very, very few cards in this set that I would say are better than Bone Mare, even including class cards. Like, there's only really a handful of them that I would say. And I'll show off a few of them here. I have them written down here. What? Where are they? Okay, so let me get this. Sorry about this. I have these written down in my written review, so I'm just pulling this up here. So cards that are better than Bone Mare. Okay, Evasive Worm, yes. Go all the way down here. Twin Tyrant, like obviously. This might be the bet. I don't think it's better than 7 mana Bone Worm, and I don't think it's better than 5/5 Corridor Creeper, but it's right on. It's a little bit lower than those, and that's scary. Like, I don't like that card. Let me see. What were the other one? The other one, Faceless Corruptor. Faceless Corruptor, which was revealed here. Yeah, 5 mana, 5/4 rush, battlecry, transfer one of your minions into this. Like, the only thing going against Faceless Corruptor is the fact that this is not really a token-heavy set. So Faceless Corruptor, I don't think that the 5 mana 5/4 the transformation, I think that actually can be a negative against you, and I think that when people learn to play around it, that it's not going to be that great of a card. No, not that great of a card. That's wrong. What I mean is that I think people think this is going to break Arena, and what I'm saying is that it's really, really, really powerful. I definitely agree, but I don't think it's on that breaks the game level card. Now, honestly, it's going to get nerfed and constructed because they can build decks around that. So, like, that's going to happen. But I think in Arena, it's going to be super, super powerful. You pick this over pretty much anything except like the really, really, really top cards. But I don't think it's at the level of breaking Arena. And then one more card, Dragonmaw Poacher, which is it. I'll be honest. I wrote this in my review. When I saw this card, I spent 5 minutes cackling because I was like, of course they're going to print a better Dragon Slayer in the deck with all the dragons, and this is it. So the problem is if your opponent doesn't play a dragon, or if you don't have this in your hand after their dragons die, then it's a 4 mana 4/4. And it's like that downside really hinders how strong it can be. Because like Dragon Slayer, you weren't giving up anything for that card. This, you're actually paying a below average 4-drop for this card. So like, it's obviously an insane card. These are cards kind of like push the power level. And then in class cards, there are actually very few class cards I think push that power level. So like I mentioned Crazed Netherwing earlier. This is probably one of them, Emerald Explorer. And honestly, Druid needs this, but like you have 6 mana for a 4/8 taunt would be a good card. 6 mana for a 3/8 taunt in Ancient of Blossoms was a fine card, and just not even the Battlecry. A 6 mana 4/8 taunt would be good. That would probably be like a 70 on its own. And here you have Battlecry Discover Dragon, which can discover Emerald Explorers. You could go infinite for it. So thankfully they got rid of the, well, that was Discover, but well, Discover, yeah. Okay, Battlecry Discover Dragon. Okay, point being, discovering a dragon, you don't get to discover class cards with an increased bonus. So thankfully this is not going to go infinite anymore. But like, that's really it. There's a few class cards that are a little bit better than this, but not that many. Like, let me see here. What are the other ones I had here? Okay. The only other ones I have that are really, really, really powerful. Dwarven Sharpshooter and Hunter. 1 mana, 1/3, your hero power can target minions. You play this on turn 1, you basically win the early game, which as Hunter is absolutely insane. Because you put the opponent into a problem where they have to play a minion that is going to get free killed by your hero power, or you just get to develop. So you are going to get so much card advantage over this. Like, this is probably the best 1-drop ever printed. Like, I'm not even joking. I can't. This is better than Chow. Way better than Chow. This is better than Tunnel Drug. I'm trying to think. Mana Worm, better than Mana Worm. Better, I would say Northside Cleric's situationally better, but this is much better on 1. Probably the best 1-drop ever printed. Right there. Okay, the other one I mentioned Crazed Netherwing and Shaman, and the only other one I have here is Squall Hunter, which it's a dragon, obviously. It's a 4 mana 5/7, which if you remember Faceless Flame Wreath Faceless, the 4 mana 7/7. A 5/7 on 4 is not that much worse than a 7/7. You're going to kill things pretty much the same with 5 or 7. And the face damage matters, but it's a couple face damage. And spell damage +2. Shamans like spell damage. Shamans have spell damage cards. Shamans, one of their sets is, where is it? Down over here. Where is Karazhan? Karazhan. One Night in Karazhan. And Shamans have this little thing in One Night in Karazhan, Maelstrom Portal. Okay, this is one of the best cards ever printed for Shaman. And now you got a dragon card that is going to turn this into a 2 mana, deal 3 damage to all enemy minions, summon a random 1-drop. So yeah, like, those cards are obviously insane. But if you count up how many cards that is, that's like 8 cards. That, to me, power creep is like when you make other cards obsolete. In Arena, nothing's really obsolete due to the random format. And with the actual power level of the cards, I think it's a lot lower than most people would anticipate. Like, the average power level is higher, certainly, but the power level of break the game cards is much lower. All right, so those are the 3 key points here. And so with this, we can talk about the meta. And I'll make this quick so you guys can take a break and then you can watch my other videos. So with the meta, there's 2 key things to worry about here. One is swing cards, and one is value cards. So going back over to the Son of Dragons. So when I say swing, I say a card that is going to remove something and put something on the board. So an example of this is like Gyrocopter. This is not the best swing card, but it's still a swing card. Because if you have 2 small things, it removes those small things, and then you have a body on the board. Better one here. Trollbat Rider. Smaller Bound Lobber. That's a swing card. Evasive Worm. That's a swing card. I'll just use the arrows here. Scale Rider. If you're holding a dragon, deal 2 damage. That's a swing card. So there's a lot of swing cards from neutrals. Numbers I went over for like cards that I rated 70 above. 6 cards from the neutrals in here are going to be swing cards. And then the other thing you have is value cards. So Big Ol' Whelp, that's the neutral value card. I mentioned over in Druid, Emerald Explorer, that's a value card. Like all the League of Explorers classes, they got value dragons. So you see here, Bronze Explorer, 3 mana, 2/3, that's good stats for 3. Battle Lifesteal, which if you put buffs on this is really, really good. Battlecry, Discover a Dragon, which is really, really good. So you see, this is a value card because you have to put a lot of things into this card. First off, you have to kill the initial card, then you have to kill the dragon, which is going to probably be pretty big. And so you're going to have to put a lot of resources into this. So what happens is you create kind of like a weird dichotomy. Because let's say, for example, imagine this in your head. Your opponent has a 5/5 on the board. Let's say it's a Big Ol' Whelp. And you've got a Chillwind Yeti and a Bloodfen Raptor. So that's 2 cards, right? So you can do 2 things. You can go face, or you can take out the minion. So if this is turn 6 and you go face, do you know what happens? I went too far. Oh, I didn't. It's bouncing back up. You know what happens? This guy happens. Your Yeti gets eaten. The Big Ol' Whelp eats your Fairy Dragon, and you're behind. Let's say it's turn 8 and you've got 2 4/3s. And your opponent has a Big Ol' Whelp on the board. And you decide, you know what, 8 face damage. That matters a lot. What happens? And this little guy happens. Drop a 7-drop, kill off 2 things, and you lose the game. So, the swing cards, you're going to want to play around those swing cards. And how do you do that? You do that by trading. And in particular, trump trading. Which, if you don't know, trump trading is where you trade off everything, even if it puts you in a disadvantaged position. Disadvantageous position. There, I got my words right. So you trade everything, like you don't push face, you try to just get an overwhelming lead on the board. Because like an Evasive Worm, if it's going into a 5/2, is a lot less impactful than if it's going into a 5/5 and leaving something on the board. And then for class cards, similarly, there are a lot of swing cards there, which I will get to, and you want to avoid them by trading off. So the problem is, if you trade off too much, you're not going face. How are you going to be able to handle your opponent? And the answer is value cards. So the cards that are draw a card and do not pay like any premium, don't pay like any penalty for this. Their premium cards don't pay penalties for this. All right. So that's basically what you want to do. You want to trade to make sure these swing cards don't do as much damage as they can, and you want to have value cards so that you can make inefficient trades and then still have the value advantage over your opponent. All right. So that I go a lot more in depth on my written review. So if you want to see that, you can go ahead and see that. All right. I'm going to take a break here. And when I go through, I'm going to try to go through 3 classes at a time. I'm not going to try to go through in depth on each card unless it's necessary. And I'll try to make this quick and go through all the classes, go through the cards, and I will rate them. I have Hearth Arena scores based on Hearth Arena scores on the written arena analysis. For this, I'm just going to use simple 6-star, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star for the cards. So like if I say like Twin Tyrant, that's a 100. And I'm just going to say 6-star. And then like super broken cards, 6 stars. Really good cards, 5 stars. Good cards, 4 stars. Above average, 3. Average, 2. Bad, 1. Pretty simple system. And then if you want more in depth, you can look at my arena analysis. All right. I'll take a break, and when I come back, I'll go over the neutrals first.